I introduced the fact that we are made up of a spirit, soul, and body. That's what creates a human being. And that we have a carnal, sinful nature intertwined into that. Now, what I want to do in the next 5 or 10 minutes is just explain that a relationship is something you should be personally prepared for from the inside of yourself out. There's nobody else that can fix you from the outside in. They can bring peace to you, but anybody that can bring peace and comfort can also bring upheaval and discomfort as well. So you're at the mercy of the condition in which the other person is. So it's better to start with yourself. So the first thing we have to ask ourselves is then what sort of condition are these elements of us in before we enter into a relationship? I think everybody needs to be personally evaluated to find out what condition they're in before they take themselves into somebody else's life. Because this is where dysfunction manifests from. And so what we find is that we need to first ask ourselves, how are we spiritually? What are our beliefs? Are we in line with our beliefs? Are they in any way harmful? If there's harmful things going on in our spiritual beliefs and our devotion, and we need to change that. Because some religions encourage harm. Well, anything that encourages harm by way of spirit is going to take that harm into the relationship, and you don't want harm in your relationships. That's what we're trying to break. That's what we're trying to prevent. So we need to examine how we are spiritually, and I think the golden rule for that is to love your neighbour as yourself, which brings us back again to self-examination. If we're not going too well ourselves, how are we going to love our neighbour? Because we're only going to be able to love our neighbour in alignment with how healthy we are ourselves. Number two, our soul. Soul's relative to heart and emotions and things like this. So we've got to ask ourselves, how are we emotionally? What is in our emotions that could be undermining our ability to be the best part of ourselves within a relationship, if we're given the privilege to go into a relationship? And how do you check your emotions? How do you know if your emotions are all right or not? Well, you can get evaluated by a therapist. You can ask yourself how you feel under different conditions and certain different things. Usually by the way we react to different things will help us to understand whether our emotions are all right or not. But see, emotions can cause tremendous trouble. And I remember one of my Bible teachers said, and I'll never forget it, he said, your emotions are a good slave, but a horrible master. So emotions have to be checked, because if we run off our emotions, then I believe there'd be a lot more chaos and harm than what there already is. And sometimes, emotions can work in the opposite, where you're running around rescuing everybody and not helping anybody. So you can be harmful out of emotions, and you can be good but over good. So your emotions need to be brought into the right place as well. Then we have our body. How are we treating our body? And this is a key thing, because you're going to need your body to be able to function with the person that you're with. Particularly if you're a man, you need to be able to function in all sorts of different capacities. For a woman, she needs to know that to some extent you would be able to protect her, to another extent that you'll be able to bring income, to another extent you'll be able to perform sexually. There's so many different ways in which your body, which is your instrument which you play in life, has to be working properly for your partner. So you need to look after your spirit by way of devotion. You need to look after your emotions by way of checking what's going on the inside and fixing anything that's not good. And then you need to be able to look after your body, which is pretty easy to find the foundations for doing that by way of diet and exercise and rest and these kind of things. But you'll find your body is also reactive to the health of your spirit and your emotions and these kind of things. So all these elements play a part in how we are going to be in terms of the version that we are of ourselves, and we all want to be the best version of ourselves. But there's one more element that I need to mention, and that's the element of our sinful nature. And I don't want to move into the divine nature yet, because that's a whole subject within itself, but we'll just move to the sinful nature. How do you keep your sinful nature in check? Well, the sinful nature is a rebel, and it's a rebel with a cause, and it wants to destroy anything good that we can produce, health-wise or relationship-wise, or in any way it can. It wants to interfere and interrupt. So the best way to deal with a rebel is to give them no rules to break. So this is where you've got to be very careful about what your rules in life are and what your rules relative to the expectations of somebody else are. Because if you start laying your rules on a woman or a man and they're not relative to the person's core values, well, they'll take those rules on at first, but I can guarantee at some point there'll be a breakdown, because the sinful nature will make sure of it. Many people, you'll ask, I've had this happen to myself, and I've heard stories about this where the person goes, you would never believe this woman was an angel, and all of a sudden she was no different to the devil himself. Well, this is because probably she was loaded up with different rules. There was too many expectations put on her, so on and so forth, and she crashed into her sinful nature. It manifested, because the sinful nature manifests by thinking there's something we need to do or not do to make somebody happy or stop them from being sad. I'm going to say that again. Our sinful nature sabotages us and everything we stand for and believe in when we think there's something we need to do to make somebody happy or stop them from being sad. It's not our responsibility, if we're living the right way, to make somebody happy or stop them from being sad. It's just not. So what's the condition of your spirit like? What's your devotional life like? What's your emotions like? Are you dealing with hurts and pains and things that are just lying dormant in there, that are waiting to come out of the closet? Is your physical body being exercised and fed properly? You have to ask yourself. And do you have too many expectations on the people in your life? Because all these things are important. If you have too many expectations on the people in your life, that will unleash their sinful nature at some point, and it'll cause probably and possibly a very untimely lot of trouble, or at worst a breakup. So I know these are simple little things, I know they're not big complicated things, but they're very essential to being able to make a relationship work, because all your relationships will start and finish with you. So you have to try and make sure, and you can have the support of your partner or wife or husband or whatever the case is. You have to make sure that you are the best possible version that you can be of yourself. Too many times we hear after the breakup that now it's time for you to become the best version of yourself. Well, you should always try and maintain being the best version of yourself, and not wait until it's too late. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Thank you for joining me, and bye for now.